I'm self-publishing.
This is only the beginning of my true resurrection.
Arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream.
True resurrection.
There's been a lot of debate over whether or not to traditionally publish or self-publish. I've already got one book self-published, so I've kind of been down that road as far as paying somebody to self-publish your book for you when the whole point is to self-publish. I will not be doing that again. I'm going to be going through the actual process of self-publishing my book, doing my own book cover, doing my own book formatting, and etc., etc., etc. You might be wondering, why? Why would you put yourself through this torture? Why would you go through hell? To which I say, there are plenty of reasons why I don't want to traditionally publish. No, it's not because I was rejected. I mean, I was rejected, but that's not the point. The first round of query letters that I sent in was last year, but I sent it into roughly 10 or 15 agents, some of which got back to me. The good news is they were all very nice about it. The bad news is that there were a couple of them that said, according to opinions in today's industry, they didn't feel comfortable publishing a book. What is so uncomfortable in PC culture about introducing a main character that's mildly bitter about her mother committing suicide?
Are you stupid?
I ain't got a clue. And I feel like that's still what kind of influenced this decision. I know my writing sucks. I've been over this. I think I would rewrite my book like 35 times. I didn't think my writing sucks. I have so much work to do. I sent it into about 25 more agents, and again, they were all very nice. I was expecting a little bit of yelling. I'm not going to publish this amateur trash. But again, there were
Do you have a reservation?
Yes.
the one agent said that she didn't think that the dialogue was organic enough, which is fine. I don't think that most dialogue in YA is organic to me, so I'm fully aware that my story might not fit and it might not meet today's standards and today's criteria. I totally understand the traditional publishing company. I understand that it is a business, that they need to make money, and they need to sell a number of books, and it's very difficult, not just getting accepted, like getting accepted is the start of it, but it's extremely difficult to try to stand out among the thousands of books that are getting printed every single year. Totally do not hate or am 100% against traditional publishing. One thing I realized when I was biting my nails waiting for responses from these query agents is I was actually hoping they were going to reject me.
Are you joking? Must be joking. You ain't laughing. I ain't smoking. Must be crazy if you think that we can stop.
The main reason is because of the creative freedom. The second main reason is because I tend to write very, very controversial, more hard-hitting. You can tell from my videos. That's just the kind of person I am. And I wanted to be able to actually write stories that speak to me and the stories that stand out the most to me. I want them to be published. I don't really want my writing to have to pander and to cater to people just to make them feel comfortable when it comes to reading my stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't try to go out of my way to make my books as disgustingly gory and heartbreakingly gross. I know there are a lot of authors that pride themselves on that. I'm not one of them. I care very much about my characters, the growth, the plot, the movement of the story, and I feel like they deserve a little bit better than just throwing it away for the sake of shock value. But I feel like later on down the line, it would kind of be conflicting for me to have to give up complete stories, which I know does happen. A lot of writers will turn in the stories after they've had like their second or third contract, and they're told to actually write something else because it doesn't fit with today's criteria. It isn't in with the trends. I also was looking up some articles about mid-list writers, and if you don't know what those are writers that don't exactly make it to the bestseller list. They're kind of seen as like mediocre stories, but their books are usually not sold in mass. They're usually struggling to keep up with the contracts and to keep the next book coming and the next contract coming and to keep the publisher's attention while they just watch whether or not their books sell. They're constantly reassured that their book will sell and that it'll be great, and then when it doesn't, they have to be coaxed and reassured that everything will work out when you don't really know. It's a very uncertain lifestyle, and I feel like I have kind of been lying to myself a little bit about that too. My lofty dreams fit in there just with the rest of everybody on auto too. I want to be able to write full time. Third reason for not wanting to go traditional publishing is the lack of security when it comes to contracts and when it comes to book sales. Meanwhile, you have authors like Anna Todd and authors like E.L. James that come from fanfiction websites, and their stuff sells. The competition is steep. It's very, very steep. I feel like it's really steep for traditional publishing companies because you don't really have the kind of control that you think. Fourth reason is because I originally wanted to go into traditional publishing for the marketing reasons. I figured if I had an agent and everything, they would set me up with TV spots, and they set you up with radio interviews and all this other wild crap that is promised to you, but what they don't really tell you is I don't think it's promised until later on down the line. Until you have like your third contract or your third book and you're a proven success, because it's a lot of money to shell out for those interviews, and you kind of have to be worth the investment. And if your books aren't selling well enough for the first one, it is harder on down the line. Fifth reason would be the blacklisting, and that comes from not having enough book sales, from not having the right target audience, from not having the widespread exposure that you do need in order to sell a lot of books to secure your career as a writer. So if you have a few flops, with each flop, from what I've read from some of these articles, it becomes harder to keep publishers' attention, it becomes harder to keep contracts coming, and if you are kind of a dead list writer, there are publishing companies that will end up rejecting you. There are editors that will reject you because they have other projects and other writers. Even though they're getting paid, you're not always promised a really good editor. Agents can reject you, and it can be very, very difficult for your writing career. I mean, the good news is you can always reset with self-publishing. That is another option, that if you have been blacklisted, I feel like you can continue to publish and self-publish, especially under pen name. It's kind of like a restart. Sixth reason, I've already created my brand, the Unwanted Book Club. I've got a website, I've got Twitter, I've got Instagram, I've got YouTube. All of these things I've sent out to the agents anyway because they want to know just how good you are at marketing and what their chances might be of success if they decide to represent you when it comes to proposing a book to a publishing company. And my brand is a little controversial. To continue to help represent writers that aren't really well represented on the site, not just indie writers. I mean, I'm talking about good writers. I'm talking about writers that I feel like their works actually speak to me and their works are actually full of things that matter. They're full of substance, and they're not really getting the representation or the help that they need, whether it's traditional or self-publishing. Now, if my brand is pretty much meant for pure marketing scheme and I have to grow my audience, that might mean having to accept sponsorships. That might mean follow the trends of what booktubers are reading or what authortubers are doing, and basically going along with everything that everybody else is doing in order to not only increase book sales but enlarge my target audience. And I feel like it's just too much compromise for me to feel comfortable in order to traditionally publish. So I'm going to stay safe, and I'm going to self-publish.